was another thing. It was the acting humble, acting like you like everyone and everyone likes you, acting like you're basically a really nice person. And there's one thing I've learned about people who act like they're nice is they're not. And it's all a facade. What is up, people? Welcome back or to another video. For those of you who are both old and new around here, a very warm welcome back. I'm super grateful to have you come and join us. My husband and I are both atheists. And I wouldn't have it any other way because I was very, very stern when I was dating and who I allowed into my personal space. That was just with dating. So I was a little bit more understanding probably when it came to friends or when it came to like work colleagues. I was always a little bit more trying to be really understanding. And I've spent the best part of probably 20 plus years being far too understanding for so-called friends who I've had in my circle, who have been some of the worst bullies that I have ever come across. And the turning point for me was actually this year in January. One final incident happened with a religious person, and that is when I finally put that boundary down solid once and for all, and it will not be moving for the foreseeable future. In fact, I just wish I'd done it sooner. So I'll start with my childhood so that people can understand the journey to where I am now with religion. I grew up in a very, very Muslim area of London. I grew up around 95% Muslim. For context, my school in the entire year had about 5 girls who were white. I went to a girls' school and I could name them and put them on one hand. No word of a lie. So I grew up around that. I also come from a Turkish background. So if you know about Turkey, that is a Muslim country. However, my parents they didn't really instill that in me personally growing up. However, they did hold different beliefs. So my dad was more religious than my mum. My mum was of the mindset of, you follow whatever you believe in. I'm not the one to tell you. So I grew up kind of confused because obviously I had Turkish parents, but I grew up in England. I just grew up very conflicted all the time. And then, of course, I went to school where I spent 90 to 100% of my time only around Muslim people. So I grew up thinking, oh, this is how you have to be. And I always remember feeling a little bit guilty and always being made to feel guilty because I used to think it was just my own personal guilt. But actually, when I look back, I felt guilty because I was consistently made to feel guilty. So because everybody else lived their life in that way, and because the vast majority of people lived their life in that way, I was always questioned on why I wasn't living my life that way because they kind of thought, they looked at me and I wasn't white, but I also wasn't in their category, but I should have been in their category, if that makes sense. So again, it was that constant conflict of where do I belong? Which side do I belong in? I just constantly felt confused, if that makes sense. So when I was growing up, I honestly didn't care about this topic because I was of the mindset, and I was of this mindset because my mum was of this mindset of like, live and let live. So my mum used to always preach to me, you like let people be who they are and be very accepting of people and be very understanding and stuff like that and very respectful if people do tell you their religion and stuff. And I used to be like, okay, fair enough, live and let live. And I held this belief up until literally like a year or so ago. I was still incredibly patient and incredibly understanding despite coming across some of the worst people I've ever come across in my life and noticing that all of them had something in common when it came to, they were tied to some sort of religion and they would make that their whole personality and identity, and it would be the only thing that they spoke about. And I consistently remember feeling very judged by these people. I always felt looked down upon, even though all this time I'm being the neutral person. So I'm being very much like, I don't have any beliefs, but if you have beliefs, then that's great. I respect that. Yet I never got that reciprocated to me. Never. I cannot think of one single occasion where I received that back from someone despite me being respectful. And I used to, now and again, I used to get really upset and really angry and think like, hold on a minute, I'm letting you be who you are. And even though I don't understand it, I'm doing this live and let live bullshit. Yet I'm constantly being shown like hostility back. So I never understood this. But in my 20s, I never used to want to rock the boat. I never used to want to make enemies. I was always scared of like talking too much or being outspoken, even though deep down inside I was that person. But I was always scared of being in trouble or anything like this. So when I came across these people, when I was like traveling or in workplaces, I would always try and keep peace by staying neutral. But these people, I remember the ones that I've come across, again, like I said at the beginning, from various religious backgrounds, were always very manipulative, very hostile. And if you weren't buying into the stuff that they were saying, they would get really, really angry and really upset. So I found it quite hard to keep friends with some of these people, because where I just wanted a friendship and I was happy for them to be who they weren't happy for me to be who I was. And I lived with that for so many years. So some of the most common negative experiences I started having were from as early as primary and secondary school. I used to always get questions. So every time it was Ramadan, I would be asked, why aren't you fasting? Now, no one in my family personally fasted. So of course, I'm obviously not going to do it. My mum didn't do it. My dad didn't do it. My grandparents, I think, did. But even then, it wasn't something we did in our household. So I would then try and explain, and I would be like, well, my parents don't do it, so I guess I don't do it. And they would be like, but you're Muslim. And I'd be like, but I'm not. And they'd say, well, why is your hair out? You should have it covered. And I'd say, well, again, it's because I am not a Muslim. It's because no one in my family is doing that. So this went on. And then I went into college and I was basically guilt tripped into pushing an identity that I didn't actually have. So by this point, I'm like 16, 17. I have been made to feel so bad about not being a Muslim that when people ask, I like start telling people, yeah, I believe in God, like I'm a Muslim, just to try and keep peace, because like I say, these religious people, they're constantly confrontational. Like it's always a confrontation. It was never just a simple conversation, like just getting to know people or just trying to understand my viewpoint. It was very confrontational. And I was scared of being, at that age, you're scared of being left out. I remember I did start saying that. But of course, when you start saying that, people are like, well, hang on a minute. And then there's that, well, why aren't you doing this? And then why aren't you doing that? And do you pray? And how many times a day do you pray? And it just spiraled into something else, because at this point, I'm so conflicted. I have no idea what to believe. I have no idea what to say. All I know is that I'm getting dragged both ends from people who won't accept when I say it and won't accept when I don't say it. So at this point, I'm literally like, I don't know who the fuck I am. I don't know who the fuck to believe in. But all I know is I don't want to be an anomaly right now. Because if you remember being that age, like 16, 17, 18, the last thing you want to be is you want to stick out like a sore fucking thumb. I remember a new girl coming to my dance class. And she had an American accent. So I was like, oh my God, like, are you visiting? Like, do you live here? She's like, no, my family have just moved here. Fast forward a year or so, we actually become really good friends. And she is, in fact, a Mormon. Little did I know about that, because like I said, where I grew up, you did not come across this at all, like at all. And I always found that really ironic that she had moved with her family from the USA to come and live in one of the most Asian areas of London to ever exist, to still exist even. And now I understand fully why her family did that, because as you know about Mormons, they're all about, getting people on board, converting people. And for a few years, again, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't care. She did used to talk about God and Jesus quite a lot, but like my mum had instilled in me, the live and let live, that's your beliefs. I'm really happy for you. Keep me out of it. And after a couple of years, it started becoming more and more pushy, more aggressive. And I just always got to the point where I felt very, very uncomfortable around her, because I was of the mindset of like, look, I'm letting you get on with your life. I'm letting you be the person you want to be. And you're not letting me be the person I want to be, because you keep bringing this up. You keep trying to convert. You keep trying to talk to me. You keep trying to talk me in and get me to go to your church. This started to really grate on my nerves, because I was there being neutral and she was there trying to be manipulative, and I didn't respect that. I didn't want to lose friends over something so trivial, because in my head, in my heart, she was still quite a nice person. If she would just stop preaching to me, that would be great. But she unfortunately didn't. And unfortunately, our friendship then did dwindle. We had a huge argument. And I said to her, the thing is with you, and I remember these words very, very well. I said, the thing is with you is you want people to live in your bubble, and you're not willing to see the world from somebody else's standpoint. Because me as an atheist, I have never, ever, I don't think I've ever gone to a religious person and questioned them on, oh, can you show me proof that God exists? And can you show me proof of Jesus? And can you, I just wanted to talk to you about, you know, when you talk to God, can you tell me what he says to you? I've never, ever questioned a religious person like this, ever. It's never crossed my mind to try and convert someone to not believe in God or to leave their religion. Yet I've consistently come across people from across the board of religions who, after a while, no matter how patient you are with them and no matter how kind and understanding you are of them, will try to get you to go onto their side at some point. And if they haven't done that, they will do it in another way. So they will try to embarrass you. They will try and manipulate you. They'll try and humiliate you. They'll try and do all sorts of things. They'll try and make you feel less than because of your beliefs. And I remember one thing about religion that didn't sit right with me is the way they treated gay people and or trans people. That never sat right with me. And trust me, I remember hearing it time and time again. Because of all the Muslims that I grew up around, I remember hearing time and time again, you can't be gay. And I would overhear how they spoke about gay people and how they treated them in their society. And that never sat right with me. I was like, no, I'm not having any of this. I do not want to be associated with people who do not accept people for who they are and who preach love and light all the time, but then literally treat gay and trans people like shit. I need to stand firm on the fact that I didn't actually believe in God, and I hadn't believed in God for a really, really long time. And this always came with lots of backlash. So I was always scared to say it. I said it in my head, but I was always terrified of saying this in case I made someone angry or I lost a friend or something like that. And I remember this distinctly. For my 21st birthday, I went to Egypt with my mum, just us two. And we obviously got questioned a lot when we were there because of the way we look and because of our family name. And the tour guide got speaking to us, and she was fascinated by, because we're on a coach full of predominantly like Germans, English, like all other white Europeans. And then there's me and my mum who look like this. So she's looked at us two and she's like, where are you two from? Because I can obviously hear you have British accents, but you do not look English. And so we were explaining, so we explained where we're from and what languages we speak, etc. And the tour guide says to my mum, oh, so you're Muslim? And that's when I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go again. I said, well, I don't believe in God. I said, I'm an atheist. And this tour guide, do you know what she fucking said to me? She was like, you're not allowed to say that in this country. And I was like, what? And I was like, you asked. You're the one who brought it up. You asked me. I'm telling you no. She goes, yeah, I know. But she goes, I wouldn't say that out loud if I were you, because you're not allowed to be an atheist in this country. I could not wait to get on the fucking plane and to fly out of that fucking country, because it was not a nice place. It wasn't a nice experience in my personal experience. For the next couple of years, I, of course, didn't know what to say. So I was kind of like, well, what do I say now? Because everything I fucking say is offensive. If I say I'm a Muslim, people go, oh, but you're not doing X, Y, Z. If I say I'm not, it causes another problem. The funny thing is, I've actually done a DNA test and I came out 1/4 Egyptian. That is what is fucking ironic about all of this. But let's continue. It gets worse, guys, because at the age of 23, guess who moves abroad and who goes to the UAE? This idiot. I get a job offer in the UAE and I unfortunately take it. Upon entry, when I was doing all my visa requirements and everything, they ask you, what's your religion? And I was like, for fuck sake, I am sick of this fucking question. But then again, it was my fault. I shouldn't have applied for that job because I knew it required me to live in Dubai. And I was just desperate at that point to have a successful career and to get the experience of living abroad as well. So I'm going through all the options and I'm telling you right now, there was about 150 different fucking religions on that drop-down menu. Do you know what wasn't there? Atheist. I couldn't put that. Wasn't even allowed to put agnostic. Everyone was saying to me, just put Muslim because you'll get treated better. And I was like, I'm not saying that on the basis that it would be lying. So in the end, there was one option that I was allowed to pick. I wasn't allowed to pick. I had to pick. There was one option, and that was prefer not to say. Again, it was that force of, we're going to put words in your mouth. And I am just like, I've had so much therapy about this because it's created so much fucking trauma in my life on the basis of it's made me feel like such an inferior person. It's made me feel not worthy of love. It's made me feel not worthy of success. The way religious people have spoken to me in my life and treated me, when I look back at all the bullies I've come into contact with, most of them have been of a religion. And they're the people who have made me feel the worst about myself. Only now at my age, going through all my therapy sessions and unpacking all of the awful experiences I've had and putting together the pattern recognition of who these awful people are, it has always come down to the same thing. It has come down to a religious person, time and time again. And a lot of you might be watching this and be like, well, why would you move to a place like the Middle East when you held such beliefs? And you're right. I still think about that choice, and I always look back at choices that I've made, and I try not to be regretful, because at the end of the day, it shapes you. But sometimes I look back on that and I always wonder, what my life would be like if I had said no. But there's nothing I can do about it right now other than learn about it. But I must say, some of the worst traumatic experiences and conversations happened, unfortunately, when I was living in the UAE. The emotional toll that it took after I moved back to the UK, it took a further 10 years for me to process everything that I had been through. And if you thought the bullying that I had in the UK from the odd religious person that I met, I don't even know where to start with the bullying that I experienced in the time that I lived in the UAE. Now, I want to obviously make it clear once again that this is no specific religion. It is all religious people that I've come across who I feel have behaved in a certain way, and that way being very emotionally abusive, very manipulative, using clear bullying tactics, being incredibly harshly judgmental on all people, regardless. They're usually judgmental on anyone who just isn't like them. So any kind of difference of opinion, anything like that, just incredibly, incredibly nasty. And you might be watching this being like, yeah, but this is not everyone. You can't put everyone in the same category, yada, yada, whatever. But those people who don't preach, you wouldn't know any different, because those people, they have a belief and it's for them. And that's what I understand, is that belief should be for you. If you believe in something, be that God, heaven, hell, etc., it's for you. It's for your own life. It's for your own comfort. That again brings me on to the topic that those who preach it, what are you trying to gain? Are you trying to get me on board? In which case, if you're doing it in such a horrible, pushy, manipulative way, what makes you think I'm going to want to join your gang? Every single person that I've encountered has tried to not only push the boundary, not just to break the boundary, but has actually disrespected and humiliated me in the process. All because they met someone who was a bit different to them or who didn't believe the same as them. I am very much live and let live. But the minute you not only cross my boundary, but you try to knock it down and you disrespect it time and time again, when I've told you this is where I stand, that's where you stand, let's keep out of each other's business, or at least let's try to get on. And you've disrespected that time and time again when I've been calm and patient and stood my ground gently, and you've continued and continued, that is when you lose all kind of privileges to be in my energy. That's when you lose all access to me and my energy. That is when I no longer can tolerate any kind of disrespect. And quite frankly, I wish I'd done this years ago. I always say it's very unfortunate that it's got to this point. I didn't want to get to the point where I'm having to fully cut out a set amount or set group of people. I don't want to have to do that. But because of all what I've been through with therapy and finding out about all this, what I didn't even know what religious trauma was before, until I started hearing other people talk about their experiences on different levels, of course. That's when I finally had to make a decision. And it's not going to sound nice. And I'm sorry it doesn't sound nice, but I just don't know what it is. I'm still to this point under the impression that it's a mixture of these people want constant validation from strangers. That's the only conclusion that I can come to. And when they don't get that validation, that is when they get angry and they start their bullying tactics and their emotional abuse. That's the only thing I can think of logically, the reason why this behavior has to be like this. Because I grew up thinking that religion was peaceful and was all about community and bringing people together and being accepting. That's the impression I was given anyway in my religious studies at school. That's not what I saw. In fact, that's not what I've ever seen. I've never seen that behavior. I've never fucking seen it. To this day, I cannot tell you a time where I have seen someone who preaches religion be either nice, understanding, be accepting. They've been everything but that. The final straw for me was around this time last year. I was working with a Muslim person, and again, the only way I found out they were Muslim is because they told me. I will never go around asking this question to anybody, because I'm sorry if this sounds horrible, but I don't care. And of course, he would bring it into every single conversation. So we'd just be talking about foods and he would bring up that he doesn't eat pork. And we're like, okay, no one asked you. Or like my work colleagues would be talking about how they're going to go out for drinks after work. And he'd say, oh, I don't drink. No one actually invited you. Let me just put that out there first. So no one actually invited you. You don't drink alcohol. That's fair enough. Loads of people don't drink alcohol, and a lot of it isn't religion. It's just for health reasons or because they don't want to spend money on alcohol. This person was consistently looking for validation. Do you want me to give you a slap on the back because you don't eat pork and you don't drink alcohol? I know loads of people who are vegetarian and who don't drink alcohol. Are you going to give them the same treatment? Or is it because that person's just made choices and you've followed a book? Which one is it? This person specifically is not everyone. This person specifically would come in every single morning, and the red flag for me, and I've never seen a grown man do this. I've never seen it before. He would come in every single morning and he would hug every single person in the room. And I thought that was really nice at first. I was like, oh my God, he's such a lovely person. Like, He obviously gets on with everybody. He's obviously popular. Until after a couple of months, I was like, something's not up here. First and foremost, not everyone wants to be touched. Second of all, I just find that weird. Like, I'm quite a tactile person, but I know perfectly well that not everybody is tactile and not everybody likes being touched. So I always ask people, unless I know them and they know me, I always ask people, are you okay to hug? This person was launching himself on people, like giving everyone back slaps and fist pumps, like he was Mr. fucking Celebrity. Okay, that was another thing. It was the acting humble, acting like you like everyone and everyone likes you, acting like you're basically a really nice person. And there's one thing I've learned about people who act like they're nice is they're not. And it's all a facade. But I learned that a very long time ago. I just was silenced for many, many years and couldn't be myself and couldn't say that out loud. I noticed very early on that this was nothing but a facade. That is just my personal vision and view of things and how I've experienced it. Yours may be different. If you've got this far, thank you so much for joining. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a massive thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.